All right, welcome back. We are going to be getting into some creative looks for color correction. We're going to do a little bit of an intro on just the idea behind creative looks, as well as actually put one on our movie. We're going to be working on project 5B color primaries done. Right click and import project. Select that in the projects directory of our work files and hit open. And just like always, if you go to the media pool, select all of your folders, right click and say relink clips for selected bins. Go to the work files and select media and hit select folder. Everything should come back and connect and be beautiful. Let's take a look at some creative color grading for our project. First of all, let's start out with just an intro to what we're talking about here. Let's go to shot 58, just because this is a wide shot. There's lots of kind of different colors and tones and everything. And first thing let's do is select our second node here and hit Alt S to make a serial node. And I'm going to label this style. And this is just so we can kind of talk about stylistic grading. So far what we've done, it depends on who you would talk to, but a lot of people would call that correction, color correction. And that's just making sure that there aren't any major problems, that things are exposed right, saturated right, everything looks like it should in normal life. That's what you would think of as a primary color correction. Right now, what we're going to do is make this look stylistic. Now, when I say stylistic, it means that it won't necessarily look real. The point is to convey a feeling. When you're talking about color theory, each color kind of means something. And probably the easiest way to look at this is just with this offset wheel. If we take the offset wheel and we push this towards kind of this bluish cyan, a couple things start to happen. Obviously, everything turns bluish cyan, but this image starts to feel sad. It starts to feel kind of cold, not happy-go-lucky, right? If you were going to guess what time of year this was shot in, you might think, oh, well, this is shot in the winter. How warm is it outside? Well, it's probably pretty cold. One, because this is an overcast day, but also it's cast a little bit blue. So there's a lot of information that gets across just by a color shift like this. Now, on the other side, if we switch this more towards warm, this has a totally different feeling. It's the same shot, it's just one different thing, it's just one adjustment, and everything looks warmer. It looks more yellow. So you might still guess, just because of the content of the shot, that yeah, maybe this is shot in winter, but maybe it's not quite as sad. Maybe things are okay. Maybe this is just a regular day. You never know. But it definitely gives you a lot different feeling than this blue tone. And same thing if you push kind of towards green. You push towards green, it starts to feel a little unnatural, a little weird. This is why in The Matrix, they had the Matrix feel green, because it's not natural, right? And then the real world was more of a blue because it's kind of cold and raw, you know, that kind of thing. So really, any decision that we make here is kind of a big deal, because with color grading, you're not just making it look cool, you're actually building a feeling into your film. So we need to make some decisions on what we want this film to feel like. I'll just right click and reset our node grade. Let's go back to our light box here. And let's think about our film. Let's push this back a little bit. This whole story is kind of sad. It's pretty intense. You know, it's an action sequence. This girl's pretty desperate. She gets shot at the end. I mean, it's not a comedy, right? So the color tones in this movie, we want to reflect the feeling of our movie. The other thing is that she's really uncomfortable this whole time. She's nervous when she picks up the gun. She's worried all the way there. She's nervous when she comes in and finds the device. She walks outside, is really worried about her car. She comes in, she's scared. The whole thing is just uncomfortable. So it's sad, uncomfortable, raw, that kind of thing. So let's go back to our shot here. Shot 58. And the question would be, how do we make this feel raw, feel uncomfortable, feel weird? And this is just a time where we can kind of play around. And even though we were messing with this in the offset before, in my experience, you generally don't want a big push like this into one specific color. It tends just to not look as refined. So what I like to do is usually start with the gamma when it's something like this. And so let's say we want this to have kind of a slight cooler tone. We can pull the gamma towards cool a little bit. And you can really go a lot farther with the gamma than you could with the offset, because it doesn't turn all the white things blue and all the black things blue. It just kind of turns the midtones blue. So we have a little bit of kind of that bluish tone. The other thing that'll make things feel raw is to add a little more contrast, which you can do a bunch of different ways. You can switch the contrast down here in the primary controls and kind of boost that up like this. Add a little bit of contrast that way. What I like to do is use the curves, because I feel like I have a lot more control over which tones are kind of getting a little more contrast and which aren't. Have a little more control down here in the darker parts of the shadows, which parts are a little brighter. And you can really refine this a lot better with these custom curves. And so a look like this compared to, say, I'll turn this off and we'll just do our blue offset. So this kind of look versus this look is a big difference. Switch over to our gallery, grab a still here, and turn this off. Let's play our still. Now we can see the huge difference here. One looks like, oh yeah, this is a really cool look for our film. And the other one looks like, yeah, they just kind of shot through a blue filter, you know? And it's not a lot harder, but it gives you the same kind of feeling without just looking cheap. You know what I mean? Let's take that reference wipe off. And so I think a direction like this would be pretty good. Kind of the blue midtones, higher contrast look. Let's try this on a different shot. Get rid of that other node, and I'll copy this node, get rid of it. Let's try one of the interior shots and see how that looks. Again, I usually like to pick a wide shot because you can see a lot more about what's going on. Shot with skin tones is nice. Hit Alt-S and select this node and hit Control-V. And that will add our style here. We also want our style on our other side of our shot here. Alt-S, Control-V. So now we have this style added to our interior shot. And I wouldn't say it looks terrible. It's not like it's crushing a lot of the blacks or anything like that. I'd say that her skin tones look a little weird. They might look a little kind of green, which might not be what we want. Although again, it's not the worst. The thing is, with any kind of creative look, it's really easy to overdo it. It's almost always better to be subtle. And I like that kind of bluish tint, but I wonder if it's just a little, just maybe a little too much, especially in the skin tones. And so I wonder if maybe here in shot 32, let's take our style node here and we'll zoom in to just this side of our clip. What if we took this and just desaturated it a little bit? We take everything and desaturate it maybe. That kind of makes it feel a little more raw, you know? It is tinted a little blue, but it's not like bright blue. And there's not really a lot of happy colors going on here at all. That's pretty nice. So I'm thinking maybe something like that. That's kind of a good direction, kind of a desaturated, sort of cool look that's really subtle. So this is without the look at all. Just our normal primary color correction. And this is with the look added. I'd say that's a pretty good direction. And what I normally like to do is try out a couple different ideas just to see which one I like best. So maybe let's reset this grade and let's do something totally different. Maybe we'll push this more towards green than blue, because we're probably going to want it in the cooler colors just because it's a sadder movie. Let's just maybe push the gamma towards green a little bit. We could do kind of a greenish yellow, sort of just uncomfortable look. And I don't hate that either. Do a little more contrast maybe. Kind of feels like it happens in Mexico or something, but somewhere in there, maybe we can saturate it more. This is kind of the opposite of what we were doing. I'd say maybe a little more green would be nice. So now we kind of have this strong sort of greenish look. Again, let's copy this correction to our other shot. Now we have this kind of greenish look. And I don't hate that either. Let's right click and grab a still. And let's get rid of our other stills here, just so we don't get confused. This is going to be one of our ideas. And then let's go back to our other shot here, right click and grab still. So now we have two different ideas. Let's get one more idea. Reset this node grade on both of our shots. Now maybe we'll do sort of a kind of a lifted black sort of look. So maybe we'll push this lift up, push the gamma down. Again, maybe we'll push this more towards like a purple. Something like that maybe. Just really playing around. You actually get a lot of insight from playing with looks that you think you would totally not ever use. I probably wouldn't ever go purple on most things. I probably wouldn't lift my shadows on a lot of things, but it's worth looking at. This is nice because you have an opportunity to play around. We can also kind of split this into a two-tone sort of thing. So like gamma's pushing more towards kind of purplish blue, and we can push the gain towards another color to kind of counteract that. So maybe kind of a greenish yellow. And now we're adding this sort of hazy look that I wouldn't say is terrible, actually. So let's take a look at that. Grab still. And now we have three different possibilities here in our gallery. And if we switch to click on split screen, and over here, if we say selected still grades, we can take our style node off of this and then just select all of these stills, and we can see all of these different options side by side. And we'll just make this full screen so we can see it. And we can kind of get an idea of the different possibilities here. So this is our just primary correction. This is kind of that saturated green yellow. Here's more of that kind of cloudy purple. And then here's the kind of bluish cyan high contrast look. The question would be, which of these do you like better? And which of these convey what the movie is about? I would say that any of these actually work. This one that's warmer, I think works because it's more tinged green and seems uncomfortable. The one that is kind of purplish, again, just feels sort of fake in a way that I think is appropriate for a time travel movie. I think that could work. But I think I really like this bluish high contrast look. I think that works nice, and we can kind of refine that to work pretty well. For what you're doing, feel free to play around with any of these grades, and you can color grade this completely different than I will, and that's totally okay. But I think for my version, I'm going to use this bluish high contrast grade.